Hello and welcome to another video. It's another long one today, so we could just go ahead and get into it. Today I am doing a comic page of the Mafia couple that I redesigned earlier in the week. They still don't have any names. I'm like super really bad at naming things. I've never named anything like super important in my whole life. I don't name stories, and I barely name characters. I just have really a hard time doing that. So they don't have any names yet. Maybe I'll just slap something random on them later. But for now, I'm just gonna refer to them as the Mafia couple. So yeah, today is a comic page of the two of them. It's just in the same color that I did for their two individual pages, just because I wanted some cohesion there. After this, if I draw them again, I promise it will not be in brown, just so we can shake it up a little bit. So I guess the context for this piece, I know I haven't really drawn anything yet, but yeah, for the context, it's supposed to take place a little bit later in the story. So they've already met each other and decided that they didn't like each other, but they also decided that if they want to survive, they are going to need to work together, right? And so this is just like the woman, she is teaching some stuff to the man, because like I said before, he's supposed to be kind of like not very good at running or fighting. So she's just training him, and so he's gonna be like tired and panting or whatever, because he's not like really in shape. Like, he's got muscles, but like I said before, his muscles are just for show. So she's trying to train him up, and this is just like a little thing that takes place during that training time. um this is actually not a comic that I had planned out prior. I did have some stuff that I already wrote down for them, and I am working on those little comic panels in my sketchbook, but like in a thumbnail sort of way. Like, this is a comic, right? But it's not like finished or anything, and the paneling is not like super interesting. I'm not super great at paneling. I do like to read manga and stuff, but when I'm reading manga, I'm more like enjoying the story and the characters, so I'm not really paying attention to like the paneling. So maybe that's something I need to do more, because as of right now, my paneling is just like really bad. And so I don't know if you know what paneling is, but basically the panels are like the little cutout sections of a comic. So like each drawing typically is in like its own little panel. And there's a way to do them so where they're more dynamic and that your eyes flow a little bit better. Um but for this comic, it's basically just them going back and forth talking to each other. There's not really different poses or anything. They're just standing there talking to each other. And it's only in like the last two panels where it changes from a front view to like a side profile. And so I'm trying to think of more interesting panel designs. I'm just not really sure what to do, because when it's in like a book, it's pretty straightforward. And so my brain is more like book focused. It is like comics focused. So I'm just like, well, they're just standing there talking to each other, so I should just draw them standing there talking to each other. Which is like, no, that's not interesting to look at. Like, you gotta switch it up a little bit in comics. Like, a book, you could just write someone sitting there talking to each other and have like the descriptions of like what they're feeling and like what's going on, without being like showing that they're moving a little bit differently. But it's not the same with like a visual medium. And so I'm trying to just figure out how to translate um words to a visual medium. But like I said, I didn't actually come up with this prior. This is just something I came up with on the fly, just because I was like, I already drew these guys on the channel, and I was like, I should come up with a comic just to like introduce their dynamic a little bit more. And so I'm like, well, I could have done the ones that I already wrote, but every time I look back on old writing, I think that it's cringe. So I was like, oh, let's come up with something new. Not to say that this writing isn't cringe. It probably is a little bit. I think we're all a little cringe, and we just have to accept that. And so yeah, this is a little bit cringe, but that's okay. And now I'm just going in and drawing the dude. So this video is already pretty long, and so since the video is already pretty long, I cut out things like the hatching, and stuff. And so yeah, if you ever see it like skip, or if you see words appear that were not there prior, that's because I just cut it out. Just because, like I said, the video is already so long. So yeah. So now I'm just going ahead and drawing the guy. I wanted him to look tired, and like he was hands on his knees, like breathing heavily. And so I pulled up a reference for this one. I didn't save the reference, so I can't show you guys, but I did pull up a reference for this one. And it really did save my life because I was like, I have no idea how to draw this pose. I've tried to draw this pose previously with my character Duke. And it came out really bad. But that was like a couple of years ago. So but yeah, I pulled up a reference because if I don't know how to draw something, I'm gonna pull up a reference, you guys. You know how I feel about references. Love a good reference. So yeah, I just use these comic as a way to practice drawing different expressions. I mean her face hasn't really changed too much, and neither does his, which is like part of the reason why I need to practice expressions. So I've already done like previous videos. I've done like 4 videos on practicing expressions in the past and how I need to push them more. And I know this about myself. I do realize that I have to push the expressions a little bit more. I just don't do it. And then I did these drawings, and I was like, let's try to push the expressions a little bit. And so I didn't really though. It's unfortunate because I don't know why in my brain is like, make them pretty, right? And so I'm like, I don't want to push the expressions more because it'll make their faces like look ugly. But like in like comics, the prettiness of like the character or whatever kind of should go fall to the wayside when it comes to like expressing emotion. Does that make sense? This is like my personal opinion. I feel like I have to get better at foregoing prettiness in favor of emotion and like more expressive expressions because if their expressions are too subtle, I feel like it's kind of hard to get what you're trying to convey across. Like if someone just has the same expression all the way through, right? It's hard to tell what they're feeling. And like that can work. That's kind of what I do with the girl because she kind of always has a smiling expression on her face. But I did change the expression subtly to like convey like annoyance a little bit and then a little bit of anger in one of the expressions. Um, and so even though she has a smile on her face the whole time, I feel like maybe subtly you can tell the difference between what she's feeling. I hope so anyway. You can't really see the drawings at the time because like I said, this is a long video, so I haven't really gotten to them yet. But hopefully when I get to those parts, you guys are able to see the difference. I feel like I'm just not great at expressions that are more like that are pushing too much. And even because of that, I feel like I always design characters who are like kind of emotion and are described with like a blank face all the time. Like I have her, she does not have a blank face, but I put her that where she's always smiling, which is like a rigid sort of expression, right? And then I have another character who I always kind of described as like a robot, and she just always has like a blank expression on her face. Like she doesn't smile or frown or anything. Like she might like tilt her head in confusion. Um, but she doesn't like really have like facial expressions. Not to say that people who don't emote are robots. That was an inaccurate statement. But yeah, that was just like the vibe that she had. Um, I don't know why I do that. I think I'm just afraid of drawing expressions, but it's just something I have to get better at. Stop being afraid. There's nothing wrong with being afraid, right? We have to push through our fears so that way we can improve. So I guess a little bit about my idea behind the dialogue. Uh I don't know. Like usually I think of dialogue before I start to draw. And so like I said previously, I do think of myself as more of a writer than an artist. And so I tend to think of the writing before I think of the drawings. And so then I'm trying to like shoehorn like drawings that fit the dialogue. Um so even though I did think of this on the fly, I was thinking of the dialogue before I put down the panels. Which I guess is the way that people do it. I don't know anybody who does art first and then like and then like dialogue after. I think most artists who are also writers do the writing first. Um yeah, I'm not really sure how to describe my paneling process or my thought process for making comics because generally there's not really much thought process behind um like think of the dialogue and then think of like the drawing that goes along with it. It's just I don't know. my brain is like kind of simple. So when I'm doing comics, I'm not super thinking about it the same way that I am thinking about like where to put the colors in like a finished piece. Because these are mostly just doodles. And I'm like, if it comes out bad, I'm just gonna redraw it anyway, or I'm just gonna scrap it. It doesn't matter. These are just in my sketchbook. And they do matter in like an artistic way or whatever. But I just kind of mean like this is not like a finished comic or anything, so I'm not too attached to it. So if it comes out bad, I might feel bad for a second, but then I'm like, whatever. So sorry that I don't have any like art advice to offer you guys or any art knowledge. I'm a lot less knowledgeable about comics than I am about other parts of illustration. I don't know how to panel comics in an interesting way. I'm not really sure about the ins and outs of making comics. I know that I want to make a comic eventually. I just don't know which characters I want to do it with. Um I would be what's it called, very insecure about any comic that I made because like I said, I don't feel like I'm like a super strong artist. That's kind of like the whole point of why I'm trying to improve currently. Like there are some things that I'm like, ugh, I'm not great at this. Like for a really long time I would never draw people's legs. And for a really long time, I was just doing portraits. I didn't draw full bodies. And so I was like, if I ever want to make a comic, you have to learn how to draw legs, buddy. Okay. It can't just all be waist up shots. It's not gonna work. That's currently what my art journey is more about. Currently is getting better at like comics and stuff, which is why I've been trying to focus a bit on character design and more unique character designs and why I don't want my characters to look alike because I have so many characters and they're all I don't if they all look alike it's gonna get confusing, right? And I'm only one person, right? So yeah, some of the ideas I come up with are gonna be the same. It's gonna be a little bit repetitive. That's why I'm trying to look at like references now, get different resources so that way I'm not just drawing the same person over and over again. Um which is why I did the redesign for these guys in the first place, just because, well, they were different characters that I split off from an AU, but also I was like, those two characters are kind of like the basis for like pretty much every character that I have. Oh, no, that's inaccurate. But for a lot of stories that I have, they were just based off of AUs that I just split characters off of. Just because I liked the story and I was like, well, I don't want it to be an AU. I want it to be its own thing now. And so every character can't look like those same two characters. Okay, it's gonna get confusing. They're all gonna be like, um, are those the same guys? They look just like those other guys. And I'm like, yeah, they look just like those other guys because they were based on those guys, right? And so I was like, "Ugh, let's split them off and make them actually look different. So yeah, that's why I'm trying to get better at character design just because I was in like a thing where I was just designing my characters to all look the same for a long time just because they were the same characters. And I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do something different, okay? Um like there's nothing wrong with having like OCs where they are like you just always put them in AUs and that's all you draw. That's cool, that's chill. That's what I do. Like I do that for my other characters. Like the first half of the sketchbook is just like AU drawings of Duke and all his friends, right? Um, and that could work as a comic, but that's not really, I mean, that could work as a comic, but that's not what I want to do with all of my characters. It's just to have them in AUs all the time. I do have some characters where I want to tell a specific story and not like, individual short stories. Like they actually have like a full length plot and stuff like planned out, for like books and stuff. And so, I want to have, well, I want them to have unique and different character designs to go with that sort of thing. And I know I'm getting kind of repetitive talking about my characters and stuff, but like, I don't think you guys understand that I have a lot of characters. I have notebooks and notebooks full of different characters and stories. Like, I didn't even bring up the superhero story that I have. Like, and I have not just one, I have two different superhero stories with different characters. One that was supposed to be a book and one that was more comic based. And then I have some contemporary stories, and then I have some stories about vampires and ghosts and stuff. And like I said, I have that angel and demon story. Those I had a story about some reincarnated gods, and then I had a different story about a different set of reincarnated gods. Like I have, and they're different plots. I mean, it sounds like did you just come up with the same story over and over again? No, they're similar premises but different stories. And so I have so many stories that I want to do stuff for, and I'm like, I just don't know which one I want to do first. Like listen, Maybe I will go ahead and do like I will start doing like story profiles for you guys just so I can get these ideas out of my out of notebooks and out of my head. Just so and also that way I have like a log of which stories that I have so that way I can, set them up by priority, which one maybe other people like better, which one I like better and set up priorities because before I was working on these guys, I was working on Duke's and Katsuo's story that they're the pro tags for. But I was like, I'll just do AUs of those guys. I won't work on the main story. What do I need to work on the main story for when I could just draw them in cute little AUs? And it's like, if I just draw them in cute little AUs, I'm not gonna get anything done. Even if I make it into, then if my idea was like, well, what if I just make the comic into AUs? And then I was like, I don't want to draw them anymore just because I was working towards the story. I have a problem where when I'm actually working towards the story, I get sick of it. Like these guys, I'm drawing stuff for them. I'm pretty motivated for them now, but it's nothing like working on their actual story. It's just like little tidbits that I have written out that I was like, it'd be cute if I drew that. But I'm not actually currently writing their story or anything. I'm just going off old notes that I have from like 2, 3 years ago. And it's like, hey, buddy, you're not gonna get anything done if all you do is just draw little things and not actually plan anything out. It's like, I like to draw little things, right? It's fun. And if that's what you like to do just as a hobby, you just draw your characters for fun, that's cool. I also like to do that, but also I'm kind of like, I should probably just write their story, even if it's like just for me, and even if it's just like comic panels that I do just for me. I should still try to work it out. But I have this thing, right, where I write out the parts that I like, that I want to. Like I'm like, oh, that's a cool scene, and so I write the scene, and then I'm like, okay, well, now I have to buckle down and write the stuff that goes before it. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. That's so boring. Like, I hate beginning stories. I don't like naming things and I don't like the start of stories. I just think setup is really boring, which is like, yeah, it is kind of boring, right? Because you're like trying to just show off the characters and get everything established so then you could get into like the stuff of the story that's like actually interesting. And like sometimes setup is interesting. But you know what I mean? Like a setup is just like to introduce the character, plot and stuff, and then you can move into like the stuff that's actually changing, shifting, and helping the characters grow. Um, that part is just so boring to me. And it's hard to write a story if you're like, oh, I'm not gonna write the beginning. And some people are like, oh, just skip the part that you don't want to write and write the parts that you do want to write, and then you could go back and fix that part that you don't like, right at the beginning. And I'm like, but I don't want to do that because then I'm writing the story, and then I'm shifting things around, and then I'm like, well, that is not based off of the stuff that I wrote at the beginning, and now I gotta rewrite all that, and I didn't want to write it in the first place, so now I have to rewrite it, and it's just like really frustrating. Um, I don't know if you guys are writers, but that's how my writer's brain works. I'm like, I'll write the stuff that I like, and then I write the stuff that I like, and I never get to writing the stuff that I don't like because I don't like doing things that I don't like. So then I just end up having just pages and pages of notes, but with like no direction, no cohesion, and nothing like finished. And so I think that part of it is probably that I'm just so afraid of showing people stuff that I feel like if I finish something, then I have to show it to people, which is not true. Okay, just because you write something doesn't mean you need to share it with anybody. And I'm starting to realize that a bit more now, where I'm just like, even if even if I'm never going to show it to anybody, I need to finish it for me. Like, I need to know that I can finish something for one, so that way it'll motivate me to finish other things. And two, um, I need to be able to say that I finished something, you know what I mean? Like, it needs to be done. Like, just for me. Like, nobody else needs to see it. If it's really bad and ugly, or if it's really like a terrible story and like super cringe, it doesn't matter because I'm not showing anybody. Like, not everything is to be shared. I've said this before in previous videos, but not everything that you do, just because it's art, just because it's like a story that you told, doesn't mean you need to tell it to other people. Sometimes you just need to tell a story to yourself to get it out of your brain, okay? Um, but I feel like maybe I will just start telling stories to you guys, like my old stuff, like the cringe stuff. Like I'm gonna start with probably like the oldest story that I have and just do like a retrospective on it and see sort of kind of like what works and what doesn't. Maybe I'll want to revamp the characters and use them for something else. Not everything that you write is like good or even like a good premise, which is okay. Like some stuff like you'll find that you go back, you look at it and like you're like, this doesn't work at all. Like this whole plot needs a rework or whatever. Like and maybe you are gonna want to do that, maybe you're not. Like that's okay either way. But I'm like, if I just put them in videos, then I will have to then I can just stop thinking about them, you know? Like I could stop thinking like, well, what if people do like this? Um No offense to you guys, but, like, who cares if people like it? Not everything is for other people. Some things are just for you. And so, yeah, maybe I'll share them, maybe I won't. I don't know. I mean, it could be good, like, video ideas, but maybe not good for, like, my mental health and my feeling confident in myself. I don't know, we'll see. So I guess since we're talking about stories, I guess I could talk a little bit about these guys, since they're on screen and everything. So when it comes to their personalities, and their like dynamics with each other, I kind of want them to like butt heads a lot, in the sense that I want the girl to be like a serious person, like she's serious about the business, she's serious about what she does, and the guy is more of like not exactly silly, but, like, kind of dismissive and kind of like an asshole, if that makes sense. So he has to go along with what she says, um, just because, I don't wanna say it's because she's gonna beat him up because that's not true. I mean, she does beat him up, but that's only because he puts his hands on her in the first place. Um, like I said, these are not, like, good people. Like I said, they're, like, in, like, mafia or the gang or in gangs or whatever, so they're not good people, so they're gonna do stuff that's bad, right? And not to say that's good or whatever. Obviously, that's not good. It's not good to put your hands on anybody, especially not someone who's supposed to be your spouse, right? Um, and they do learn that eventually. But they do start off as really not good people. Like, yeah, I mean, they still end up being in the mafia or whatever. So it's not like to glorify the mafia or whatever, because obviously the mafia is bad and killing people is bad. But and they're supposed to be bad people, just so that you guys know. I don't want you to be like, oh, they're so sweet, so cute when they're together. It's like, yeah, they're so sweet, so cute when they're together, but they still like kill people, guys. Okay. Do you guys ever notice that in like when people enjoy like media and like their favorite characters, like the villain or whatever, they tend to like be like, "Oh, they're so cute. It doesn't matter that they killed all those people." You guys, it does matter that they killed all those people. I don't think the point of like villain redemption arcs or whatever is supposed to be like, "Oh no, it was okay that they killed all those people," you know? That's why when they have a villain that people plan to like redeem, they don't make them like super super evil. Like there are some characters where they're like, they're a mass murderer and they do get redeemed. The character I'm thinking of currently is like Vegeta. Um, like he was like a mass murderer and he did get redeemed, but I think that in the narrative he still is like struggling with that. Like if you look at the current Dragon Ball manga, he is like trying to get past the fact that he killed all those people and he does like feel bad about that. And so he's like trying to redeem himself even further than he already has. Um and so like that's cool, and he, like, did become a better person. It's not like he's still going around and killing people. It's, like, one thing to be like, "Ooh, I love this character," or, "I love it when he kills people," which is like, okay, guys, like, you can like a character and still be like, "No, it's bad that he kills people." Anyway, so that's kind of the vibe here. They're, they're, they kill people, but, you can still, like, look at a story about people that you wouldn't do the same thing as them. Like, you can read stories about people who are more morally gray or they do bad things. It doesn't mean that you co-sign the things that they do, you know? It's just like a story. So yeah. And anyway, basically, I got sidetracked, but their personalities are basically just like they clash. Like she wants him to get serious and start doing stuff, and he's like, "Ill, gross. I just want to party, and you should loosen up, and you should come loosen up with me." And she's like, "Ew, gross. No, I don't want to loosen up. I want to do things the correct way and try to get things done before we have to get married and take over this whole business when your dad retires or whatever." And so that's where I kind of want them to butt heads. And so this comic is not super about them butting heads. Um, Basically what they're doing, they're just working out and she's like trying to get him more in shape. And so she's pointing out his piercings and he's like making it a joke. He's like, "Ah, you like them, don't you? Especially this one," which is like ill gross, but he's supposed to be kind of like ill gross. He's supposed to be like really like ew at the beginning, like no girl would like you. Why do people only like you because like your money and stuff? Like stop it. And she's like not impressed. And so the next panel is basically her being like, No, I don't like your piercings. I was just thinking that they would be like really easy to rip out." So yeah. So she's kind of also unhinged. Like I said, she's not really a good person and she says things kind of frankly. And she is like kind of like super violent. I did say that they get into a fight. So I had two different versions of their first meeting. One that was more kind of like awkward, and then one that was a little bit more violent. I did panel out both of those. If I ever do a sketchbook tour of those, you'll see them. But the first one was kind of just being like them interacting and her going to like a club where he's at and him being like unimpressed by her. He's like, ugh, she's like too tall and she's like not cute. You know what I mean? And so, that was the first one. And then I had a second one where she actually, he was supposed to pick her up from the airport just so as like a way to like bond or whatever. And then he didn't pick her up from the airport and she's like, okay, if he's not gonna pick me up from the airport, I'll go see him. And so she figures out where he lives and she breaks into his apartment and he does not know who she is. So he's like, "Who are you?" And she's like not answering the question. She's like kind of skating around it. And so he like grabs her, like he's gonna fight her. And she does not want to be grabbed. And so she smashes his face into like the counter and he gets like a nosebleed. And she's like, "Whoops, sorry. That was like kind of on instinct, but also you shouldn't grab people out of nowhere." And he's like, "You broke into my apartment." So yeah, that's like their first meeting in either way. I choose to go with it. I think I preferred the second version just because I feel like it sets up their antagonism from the beginning, right? I don't think that people should beat up their partners or future spouses or anything like that. But I do feel like it fits more in character for them if they start off like really bad and then they move into like a better place. Does that make sense? Also, I feel like it establishes their personalities a bit better. And I feel like the paneling would be more interesting in the second option. I just feel like it establishes that he does not care about her, and then he doesn't care about changing his lifestyle, and it kind of establishes that she is hyper aggressive and sort of a little bit impulsive sometimes. So yeah, I just feel like the second option displays their personalities a bit more. And also, I feel like it would be more dynamic for paneling, and I could draw people fighting. I don't really draw people fighting. Like I said, my poses are a little bit stagnant currently, and so I just feel like it'd be more interesting and a little bit more fun if I got to draw people fighting already. Um, and it is and the opening for the story, and I just feel like it would be a more fun opening. Is violence fun? No, I guess not in real life. In stories, it's okay. I mean, I like superhero movies and stuff, and that they're full of violence. So I'm not like against violence in media. Um, I'm actually pretty pro violence in media, if we're being honest. Not pro violence in real life. I mean, unless somebody steps to you. I mean, if they're gonna swing first, you gotta defend yourself, right? Um, but I'm kind of getting off track. That's not what I want to be talking about, whether or not violence is good or not. This is not a philosophy channel, okay? I can't determine whether or not violence is good or whatever. Um, but yeah, that's also like another thing I wanted to talk about was their viewpoints. So obviously the guy does not want to be in an arranged marriage or get married at all. He likes the way he's living and he even is like, I really don't want to prepare to take over the family business either. And the difference with her is it's not that she does want to get married. She also is opposed to getting married. She was like forced into this also. So she's like, I don't want to get married either, but like this is kind of like our duty to our families. Like I was given to your family basically, which is gross. But that's like the purpose. It's supposed to be like gross. You're supposed to be like, ew, why do they do that? You're not supposed to think that her like I said, they're not good people. Nobody in these families are good people. And she got sold not sold off, but like she got offered up as like basically a bride to this guy's family because she was raised to be like the leader of her family. So she's kind of supposed to be like a ghost boss, if that makes sense. She's supposed to be like pulling the strings for him because his parents were kind of like, our son is not taking the business seriously, so we'll bring in like someone who could basically run it behind his back. So they're like, we give up on him. We'll just get him married to like a woman who knows what she's doing, right? Which is like behind every great man is a good woman or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, so that was basically what the idea was. She obviously didn't want to do that. She's like, I don't want to like do things behind the scenes and then somebody gets all the credit. Like, so she's like also like, I don't want to get married. And the fact that I have to get married is making me really mad and upset. And the fact that you are being obstinate about it is making me more upset. Like, I don't want to be here either, but I'm doing it because my family requires it. And I would always do things that my family requires because I was raised to care about my family and the family comes first. And so, like, suck it up, guy. And so that's also where they clash. He's like, "I don't wanna do anything that I don't have to do, like, who cares about my family, right? Like, what have they ever done to me? Ever all they do is, like, put pressure on me and then tell me I'm not good enough, so, like, fuck those guys." And she's like, "Yeah, well, my family sucks too, but I'm doing it anyway, so suck it up, like, get it over with. We're gonna get married, and you don't have to like it, but we're gonna do it." So that's basically where their dislike of each other comes from. It's just that the fact that they're both stubborn and they both don't want to be around each other in the first place, and then one of them is like, "I don't like you," and the other one's like, "I don't like you either, but we have to do it," and the other one's like, "No, we don't have to do it. I don't have to do anything." And then yeah, that's basically the whole gist of their rivalry, I guess you could say, at the beginning of the story. Obviously, as it moves through, they learn more about each other. She learns, oh, well, maybe he does have a reason to not like his family and not have loyalty to his family because his family didn't show loyalty to him. And then he's like, well, maybe she has a point too. Like, I'm supposed to take care of the family. And even if I don't like them most of the time, there are like parts of the family that do deserve to be taken care of, even if it's like not the people that, harmed me. There are other smaller people that we do protect as like our family and they deserve protection. Right. And he's like, "Oh, well, maybe also she suffered in her family too, like, we can relate to each other." So they learn to relate to each other, and eventually it goes through, and they do fall in love. Yay! Love it when, they fall in love. I like romance, right? I like to write romance and stuff, and then read romance. I'm not sure if I'm really, like, the best person to be writing romance or anything, though, um, just because I really don't know anything about it, like, so I'm like, I don't know. Is this romantic or is this like cheesy? You guys can tell me if it's romantic or cheesy. I'm not sure exactly at what point they do fall in love. Um, but I mean, I do think that they are gonna work together at some point to get back at her brother because her brother was the one who brought up the idea of, strengthening their ties with other mafia groups by giving his sister away as a bride. Just because he wanted to take over the family. I don't know if that's cliche or not. I feel like it is kind of cliche. But yeah, it's just that he used like the sexism that the family already had. Like some of them were pretending like they were okay with having like a female boss, and they really weren't. So they used like the first opportunity they had to get rid of her even though they knew that she was, like, super confident, but they, like, framed it in a way where it's like, "Oh, it's for the family," so that way she wouldn't, like, go, like, unhinged and kill them all, because, like I said, she is, like, hyper violent and she is, like, super serious about her family and protecting her family, so if she thinks that someone is crossing her, she, like, does not hesitate. She will get rid of you, and so they're like, "Well, it's for the family." They, like, manipulated her so that they thought it was for the family. She realizes, though, that it's not just for the family, like, this marriage obviously will strengthen bonds between the 2 families and make her own family stronger, which is why she ended up going along with it instead of, like, killing the people who even, like, suggested it. But also she's like, "This whatever, I don't wanna do this, but I will do it for the family," and, like, her parents convinced her that this would be better for the family and that her brother would do a good job, which is not true because her brother is, like, kinda like this guy, where he just wants, like, the money and the stuff. And so also add that on as a reason why she doesn't really like this guy because he reminds her of her brother. So I really haven't plotted out too much of the story yet. A lot of that stuff I just came up on the fly now. Just as I'm thinking out loud about it. I think that if I was going to write it as a complete story, it would be focused a little bit on the romance and then also focus on trying to get her back established into her family, basically, so that way they could take over both families. And also for her to get revenge against her brother for like sabotaging her in the first place. I want her brother to kind of be like the antagonist of the story, I think, which would make her more of the main character than the guy, just because obviously he's more like a side character in her story and where she like is on like a revenge scheme. So if I was gonna do this, I think I would do it more as like a comic. I think it just fits more as a comic. And so she'd be like trying to get revenge against her brother. Like maybe her brother would go ahead and kill her parents after it's established that he's taking over as the next boss. So that way he could have like all the access to like the money and the funds and that could like piss her off. And maybe he like goes against some other group. He's like, that group did it, and he like wipes out the entire group. It's like that group was like maybe one of their oldest allies, and that would really make her mad, And so the goal would be to like get revenge against the brother, and maybe he would be like, "Dang, that's really messed up." The fiance, and he'd be like, "I'll help you," and then that could like bring their bond closer together. I don't know though. I haven't really planned out the comic too much or the story too much past their like initial meeting, um, and like their butting heads part or whatever. I just really had their since it was an AU, it wasn't really focused on the plot. It's more focused on just having them like fall in love in like a mafia setting. But now that it is its own story, I do want it to have a little bit of a plot. But previously I would never have made her brother the villain because the original characters that I spun them off of, the girl and her brother had like a really close relationship. Like their bond was like the what's it called? It informed like the whole point of the story because like in the original story, her brother dies and that changes her whole like life trajectory basically. So I never would have made him the villain, but then now it's its own story. I'm like, oh, make that guy the villain. It makes just the most sense. So yeah, tell me if that's cheesy or if it's like lame or whatever. I don't know. I know I said that I feel like I'm more of a writer first, artist second. But that doesn't mean that I'm a good writer. I think I'm okay. I'm nothing earth shattering or anything. I'm not super big on prose. Like it's not like super flowery or whatever, and I have trouble like describing things. I think I do more like dialogue based stuff just because I have ideas for the dialogue first. Um, but that doesn't mean that it's good dialogue. You guys can read the dialogue here. You can pause it when I'm done. I do leave a couple seconds at the end. So if you want to pause and read it, you can. I don't think it's like earth-shattering dialogue or anything. It's just like a little joke that I had planned in my head, about her being unhinged and him being like, "Oh gosh, what did?" I mean, I feel like he should realize at this point they've been hanging out for like a couple weeks at this point. He should realize that she's kind of unhinged. Um, but I guess sometimes it takes people repeated times to learn about these things, and I think that is part of his character. Like she did like a bunch of research on him. And she was like, "Yeah, you don't really learn after the first time. You had to like do a mistake like 3 times for you to learn your lesson." Which is like, that's weird. How would you even know that? But like I said, she does a lot of research on him just because she's like, well, if I'm going into a marriage with this guy, I need to be informed about him. And he's just like, "Oh, I have to marry this girl. Oh, I don't really want to, so I don't care to know anything about her." Which is also a way to show like the difference in their personalities. She's like a planner first, and he's like not planning at all. So yeah, we're coming to the end of the video now. I hope it wasn't too wild and rambly for you guys. I know, when the videos are longer, I tend to like go on tangents and stuff. That's just because I'm like, I just gotta figure out a way to fill 40 minutes. You guys can go ahead and try at home. See if you could talk for 40 minutes straight. I promise it's actually really hard. Especially when you're an introvert like me and most of your thoughts stay in your head. And I'm like, I don't know if I should say that. I feel like that's not like nobody wants to know about that sort of stuff. So I had to like force myself to think of things to say, just because usually I'm pretty quiet and keeping my thoughts to myself. It's a little bit different, to like actually share the thoughts that you're having, especially like story stuff that you've kept close to your heart, for a really long time. But I hope you guys are enjoying it. I mean, and if you're not enjoying it, you can tell me too. I promise I won't cry about it too much, only a little bit, and I promise I will not show you. Anyway, yeah, I don't really know what else to say. The video still has like a whole minute going on. So basically he's just like, so I should take my piercings out? And she's like, yeah, you should take them out. Just because she's like I said, she's a pretty pragmatic character and she's like, I'm not wearing piercings just because of the slight possibility someone might use them to rip them out of my head and they would hurt really bad. And like I said, he is a character who is more like focused on the appearances, so he's not even thinking that someone would try to take his piercings out of his hair or his ears or whatever. Um, and that's also a way to show their different thought process and stuff. And then I'm just coloring it up. The end of the video is always so awkward for me because I feel like it's very obvious that I run out of things to say, and then I'm just trying to buy time until I could get to the goodbye. And yes, that is also what I'm doing right now. So that's the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed spending time with me. I'll go ahead and see you in the next one. Bye bye.